I met Lena at a mutual friend's engagement party in D.C. I was 2 years into my job with a mid-sized architecture firm, freshly promoted, and still a little too eager to impress strangers. She was standing near the bar, sipping white wine and laughing at something a friend said. She wasn't loud, just radiant, like she knew the shape of the room and exactly how she fit inside it. We talked for a while that night, nothing heavy, travel, books, how neither of us really liked big social events. She told me she worked in marketing, had just switched agencies, and was adjusting to the shift from boutique clients to corporate accounts. I remember thinking how sharp she was, polished, not performative. Someone who moved with purpose. We started seeing each other not long after. Our first few dates were easy, natural. Long walks, shared meals, lots of time in bookstores and coffee shops. She had a way of listening that made you feel like your words mattered. I liked that. We didn't rush into anything, but there wasn't much hesitation either. By the 6-month mark, we were serious. A year later, we moved in together. Marriage came a little over 2 years after that. A small ceremony, just family and close friends. Nothing extravagant. Lena didn't like excess for its own sake. She picked a modest venue outside the city, wore a simple but perfect dress, and asked me to write my vows by hand. We honeymooned in Portugal, spent 10 days wandering old streets, eating too much seafood, and talking about everything we wanted for the future. We bought a townhouse in Arlington the following spring. 3 bedrooms, plenty of light, just enough space to grow into. Lena handled most of the decorating, neutral tones, clean lines, lots of plants. I built the bookshelves in the living room, hung the picture frames exactly as she mapped them out. She had the vision, I had the tools. Our daughter, Ellie, came 2 years later. Then Miles, just 18 months after that. Those first years with the kids were hectic, messy, sleepless. But they were good years. We took shifts, late nights, early mornings, tag-teaming tantrums and diaper disasters. Lena was a natural mother, patient, warm, but with boundaries. She read to them every night, made them laugh during the worst storms, and never let them go to bed without a hug. Work stayed busy. I rose through the ranks at my firm, eventually leading a team on several high-profile projects. Lena returned to her agency after maternity leave and was promoted soon after. She managed a portfolio of tech and lifestyle brands and often brought home samples, marketing decks, and ideas she wanted my thoughts on. We respected each other's space professionally, but it felt good to still have that overlap. Our schedules were tight, but we made time. Friday night takeout after the kids went to bed. Weekend outings to museums or the zoo. The occasional trip when our parents could watch the kids for a few days. We had a rhythm. Not perfect, but functional. Built on shared effort. To anyone looking in, we were a stable, working family, growing together, moving forward. Our days followed a rhythm, and there was something comforting about that. We were a family that lived by schedules, shared calendars, meal preps on Sundays, the morning scramble with backpacks and coffee mugs. Lena liked structure. So did I. We each had our domains, and neither of us micromanaged the other. Weekday mornings were usually a blur. I handled drop-offs, she took pickups. Ellie had soccer twice a week, Miles started swim lessons that spring. Between deadlines, client calls, and last-minute errands, it was easy to feel like we were just passing each other in the hallway. But it was a good kind of busy. The kind that came from building something real. Lena's job kept evolving. She was promoted again, to Regional Strategy Director. More meetings, more travel, a bigger team under her. She didn't complain, she thrived under pressure. And while the late nights and weekend emails came more often, she never let it interfere with the kids. She was still the one who organized their birthday parties down to the last detail, who remembered every theme, every allergy, every kid in their class. I kept my focus on architecture. The firm was growing fast, and I was managing more people than ever. I loved the work, even when it meant coming home with drawings on my tablet and zoning plans stacked beside the dinner table. Lena respected that. She never made me feel like I wasn't present enough, even when I felt guilty for missing a few of the kids' milestones. We split the emotional labor as best we could. I handled the logistics, insurance, car stuff, school paperwork. Lena took on most of the social load, planning holidays, coordinating with other parents, keeping our extended families in the loop. It wasn't always even, but it worked. There were moments of friction, sure. But no cold wars. No shouting matches. We were partners. We understood the weight of the life we'd chosen. Vacations were where we reconnected most. We took a trip to the Pacific Northwest the year Ellie turned 6. Rented a cabin, explored tide pools, drank coffee on the porch while the kids ran barefoot through wet grass. It wasn't luxurious, but it felt like ours. Like time slowed down just enough to remind us we were more than co-parents and co-workers and deadline jugglers. We were still us. The kids were thriving. Ellie was sharp, observant, already asking questions that felt too big for her age. Miles was easygoing, affectionate, always looking for someone's hand to hold. They were different in every way, but somehow balanced each other. Watching them together made the chaos worth it. Every missed dinner, every late night working, every logistical scramble, it felt like it was leading to something stable, something built to last. We had photos of them everywhere. Lena made annual albums, one for each year since Ellie was born. We'd sit and look through them some nights, laughing at the baby faces and messy holidays and that one trip where Miles threw up on the ferry and Ellie insisted it was the best day of her life. We weren't perfect. But we were in it. All the way. And that, to me, had always felt like enough. By the time Miles started kindergarten, we were in what Lena used to call the glide zone. The kids were old enough to dress themselves, pour cereal, and argue in complete sentences. The daycare phase was behind us, the diaper era done. We had space again, not just in our schedules, but in our heads. Lena began a mentorship program at her company, working with junior staff to develop leadership skills. She enjoyed it. Said it reminded her of where she started, back when she had to prove herself in every room. I could see her confidence deepen with it. Her calendar filled up more than ever, but she handled it with precision. Meetings, presentations, launches, she juggled it all. Meanwhile, I was promoted to director of projects at my firm. It came with a raise and the kind of stress you carry in your neck and shoulders. I liked the responsibility, though. I liked mentoring my team, managing timelines, fighting for design over cost cutting. Lena supported it completely. She even helped me prep for a major pitch when I was drowning in last-minute edits. We still made a good team. The kids were thriving in their own ways. Ellie joined a math enrichment program and started writing short stories that she'd read aloud at dinner. Miles had made fast friends in his class and was learning the piano. Our evenings were full of homework, music practice, and the kind of tired laughter that comes after a long day but before bedtime. We'd started a new routine, Friday family movie night. Lena made popcorn, I picked something from the streaming service, and we'd all pile onto the couch. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it became one of those small traditions that grounded everything. Even if the week had been chaos, Friday was our reset. We stayed connected with friends, too. Lena's college group met up every couple months for dinner. I had my old basketball crew from work. We hosted a few get-togethers, always low-key, usually ending with kids half asleep in sleeping bags and adults quietly sipping wine in the kitchen. Holidays remained a big deal for us. Lena loved planning them, Easter baskets color-coded, Halloween costumes homemade, Christmas mornings timed to the minute. We flew to Michigan that winter to see her family, then took a road trip to see mine. The kids were old enough to remember things now, and we tried to give them memories worth holding on to. Financially, we were stable, better than stable, really. We'd refinanced the house, paid off the last of our student loans, and started looking at vacation properties. Nothing extravagant, just a small cottage near a lake we'd visited before. Lena found one online and bookmarked it. We talked about buying it next year. Our evenings were still busy, but familiar. I'd work late some nights, Lena would take calls in the den or prep for a client presentation. We moved in parallel, sometimes intersecting just long enough for a quick meal and a shared joke about how tired we were. Still, we found time, date nights, morning walks when we could swing it, quick getaways when our parents volunteered to watch the kids. It wasn't constant romance, but it was a deep kind of partnership. A steady one. And in a life as full as ours, that felt like everything we needed. By the time spring rolled in, everything felt like it was moving forward on well-oiled tracks. Not perfect, but efficient, like we'd mastered the flow of our lives. We'd carved out routines that kept the chaos manageable, and the systems we built together worked more often than not. Lena had fully transitioned into a hybrid work schedule, 2 days in the office, the rest from home. She set up her workspace in the upstairs guest room, filled it with soft light, air plants, and those color-coded notebooks she'd been using since college. On her in-office days, she left early, dressed clean and sharp, always with coffee in hand. She had a way of moving with purpose when she walked out the door, like she knew the day would bend to her. The kids were thriving at school. Ellie had started a blog for her short stories, and her teacher called to say she was helping other students with writing. Miles joined a rec soccer league and turned out to be surprisingly fast on the field. Saturdays became game days. Lena was usually the one on the sidelines with snacks and extra sunscreen, while I handled the logistics, uniforms, water bottles, the after-game cleanup. Our weekends stayed full, but not hectic. Sundays were reserved for grocery runs, family board games, and meal prep. Lena loved trying new recipes, and the kitchen had become her creative space. She played podcasts while she cooked, scribbled notes in her cookbook, adjusted spices without ever measuring. I handled cleanup and dishes. It was a rhythm we didn't even talk about anymore, it just worked. We also started seeing a financial planner. Not because anything was wrong, just the opposite. We were doing well and wanted to be smarter about it. We reviewed college funds, upgraded our insurance, discussed long-term investments. Lena was focused, asked sharp questions, and pushed for better rates. She was always good with money, disciplined, informed. I trusted her judgment completely. Date nights became less spontaneous, but more intentional. Once a month, we hired a sitter, picked a restaurant we hadn't tried before, and spent a few hours being something other than mom and dad. Sometimes we talked about the kids. Other times, we didn't mention them at all. Just two people, catching up on each other's worlds, sharing bites of food, laughing over the same jokes we'd told a dozen times before. Our friends often commented on how balanced we seemed. Lena brushed it off, but I knew it meant something to her. We'd worked hard to build this, to keep careers and parenting and marriage all running without burning one thing to keep another warm. At night, after the kids were in bed and the kitchen was quiet, we'd sometimes sit in the living room with a glass of wine. No TV, no phones. Just quiet, shared space. It wasn't always profound. Sometimes we barely spoke. But there was comfort in the silence, in the sense that we didn't need to fill every gap to feel close. We weren't flashy. We weren't dramatic. We were functioning. And in the real world, where jobs demand and children grow and days bleed together, that felt like more than enough. It started with late returns from the office. Nothing outrageous, an extra hour here, a sudden client dinner there. Lena had always been committed to her work, especially with her new team and the expansion projects they'd taken on. I didn't question it. She always texted, always gave me a heads up, always apologized if dinner had to be pushed back. Then came the travel. She was asked to lead a regional rollout for one of their bigger clients, something about coordinating brand direction across 3 cities. I was proud of her. It meant recognition, and likely another title bump. She was gone for 2, sometimes 3 days at a time. The first trip was to Charlotte, then Boston, then Denver. Each time, she sent photos from her hotel room, coffee on the window ledge, city views, the occasional shot of a new restaurant dish. It felt like a professional step up, and I made sure she knew I supported her. At home, I adjusted. Picked up the slack. I handled more of the evening routines, packed school lunches, helped with homework, brushed tangles out of Ellie's hair. The kids missed her, but they understood. Mom's doing big things, I told them, and they repeated it with pride. Lena brought back little gifts, chocolates, postcards, sometimes new books for the kids. She still called before bedtime, FaceTimed when she could, asked about the soccer games and who Ellie was sitting with at lunch. But there was something about her tone. Not distracted exactly, more controlled. Like she was holding something back, or pacing her words. She began locking the door to the guest room where she worked. She said it was because she'd had a video meeting where Miles ran in halfway through, and it embarrassed her. Fair enough. We laughed about it. But after that, even when she wasn't in a meeting, the door stayed closed. Sometimes I'd hear her voice through it, quiet, clipped, professional. Other times I didn't hear anything at all. She still did the school drop-offs on the days she worked from home. Still helped Miles rehearse his piano pieces. Still folded laundry on Sundays while listening to that same podcast she liked. But her energy had changed. There was a new tightness to her movements, a preoccupation that didn't quite leave even when she was smiling. I chalked it up to stress. The new role was demanding, the travel frequent. She was probably just exhausted. Burnout wasn't rare in her field. I asked if she wanted to take a weekend for herself. She said no. I'm fine, she said, and kissed me on the forehead. We still had dinner together. Still watched our shows when we could. Still managed a date night, though she was a little quieter than usual, didn't linger over dessert. I asked if something was wrong. She smiled and said, just a lot on my mind. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Everything else still looked the same. The following month, Lena's schedule thickened with meetings I couldn't keep track of anymore. I stopped asking for specifics. Not out of mistrust, just because it felt like her calendar was its own machine now, running parallel to ours. She would leave early, often before the kids were up, and return after dinner, occasionally after the kids were already in bed. Sometimes she'd say the meetings ran late. Other times, just had to decompress a bit. She was never short with me, never hostile. If anything, she was even more polite. She'd touch my arm when passing by, thank me for cleaning up, smile as she scrolled through emails. But those touches felt mechanical, reflexive rather than real. One Friday, she forgot about movie night. Ellie had picked out a new animated film and spent the whole afternoon reminding us about it. Lena texted at 6:13 p.m., so sorry, babe, caught in a client dinner. Don't wait up. Kiss the kids for me. I let it go. The kids were disappointed, but they adapted. They always did. Saturday morning, she brought home pastries from a bakery she said she found downtown. She acted cheerful, overly so, pulling out croissants and joking about the calories. The kids forgave her instantly. I did too. Or maybe I just didn't see a reason not to. She started dressing differently, too. Not drastic, just more intentional. Sharper lines, heels on days she used to wear flats, lipstick at 8 a.m. even when her meetings were virtual. I complimented her. She said, thanks. Gotta stay sharp around the young blood at the office. I laughed. It seemed harmless enough. Still, the door to her office remained closed more often. I knocked once to ask if she wanted coffee and caught her face mid-click, closing a tab on her screen too quickly. She smiled, told me to come in, but the moment stuck with me. not in a suspicious way, just in the way you notice something slightly off and file it away. There were new passwords, too. She updated her phone lock screen. Said it was because of a work security protocol. Her laptop, once left open on the counter when she ran to the store, was now always closed. Always put away. Always clean. She started taking weekend calls, muffled conversations behind the locked door, or outside in the car with the engine off and the window cracked just enough to let her voice out into the wind. I saw her once through the window, gesturing with her hands while speaking with someone, her expression soft, then laughing, something too warm for a business call. But still, nothing concrete. Nothing that demanded confrontation. She was still Lena. Still present at school events when she could be. Still calling my parents every Sunday. Still remembering to reorder the kids' vitamins and setting reminders to water the plants. If something had changed, it wasn't visible from the outside. It was all in the air between us. And I didn't know how to name it. We started missing each other, even when we were in the same room. Not in the obvious way, there were no arguments, no silence thick enough to cut, but something subtle had shifted. Our conversations grew shorter, our laughs more spaced out. I'd ask her about her day, and she'd summarize it in 3 sentences, never pausing long enough for me to ask more. She began sleeping in on Saturdays, even when the kids came bouncing into the room. I'd take them downstairs, make pancakes, run through the routine. Lena would come down an hour later, hair still damp, dressed but distant. She'd sit at the table, smile, pour coffee, thank me for breakfast. But there was something about the way she moved, like she was floating just above it all, not fully touching the ground with the rest of us. Sometimes she'd disappear into her office on weekends for just a quick call, then not come out until dinner. I'd knock once or twice to remind her of the time, and she'd apologize as she passed me in the hallway, already texting someone back. She began attending more after-hours events for work. Mixers. Strategy dinners. Brand launches. The invitations started arriving more frequently, each one justified with a purpose. We're trying to land this account. It's good exposure for our team. They expect leadership to show up. I didn't push back. Lena had always been good at what she did. I admired her drive. And I knew how much effort she'd put into getting to this level. But she no longer asked me if I wanted to join. I didn't realize that until about the 5th one. She'd still come home with little details, the restaurant's decor, the people she sat next to, the industry gossip. But there was something polished about her stories now, like they'd been rehearsed. I couldn't explain it, but I knew when someone was telling a version of the truth that had been carefully pre-selected. Her energy shifted, too. More often than not, she seemed tired, but not the kind of tired that came from parenting or work. It was a glazed-over kind of fatigue. Like her thoughts were elsewhere, but she hadn't found the courage, or the reason, to bring them back. She stopped initiating anything intimate. No kisses out of nowhere. No hand on my back while I cooked. When I leaned in, she didn't pull away, but she didn't reach back either. Once, in bed, I touched her shoulder, and she flinched like she'd forgotten I was there. The kids didn't notice much. They still saw the same mom, organized, warm, involved. But they did start asking where she was more often. Why's mom working so much? Is mom going to be home for movie night? I didn't have a good answer. I told them she was helping people, that her job needed her right now. And that was true. As far as I knew. She was always just busy. Always somewhere else. I didn't question it. I didn't dig. I trusted her. Because when someone has never given you a reason to doubt them, your mind doesn't go there, not right away. You just keep showing up. Until something forces you to stop. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had wrapped a client call early and was scrolling through emails when a notification from a colleague popped up, no subject line, just a link and a short message, thought you might want to see this before it spreads. The link led to a video on a third-party gossip blog. Not a mainstream outlet, more of a niche industry site, corporate scandals, HR disasters, that kind of thing. The title hit me before the video even loaded. Disgrace to the company, employees caught in indecent act inside office conference room. I remember the way my heart stalled, like something heavy dropped inside my chest. I clicked, still assuming it had nothing to do with me. A clickbait headline. Maybe it was about someone else in Lena's company. The firm had grown. It could have been anyone. But then the footage began. Low resolution. Grainy. A fixed overhead camera aimed at a small, glass-walled conference room. At first, I couldn't tell who the people were. The camera was angled from above, distant. Then I saw the red blouse. I recognized it immediately, it was Lena's. She wore it last Thursday. The man entered the room behind her. He was taller, broader. No one I recognized at first. But as they turned, laughed, and moved closer, there was no mistaking it. It was her coworker, the one she mentioned a few times over the past year. Jonathan, I think. She'd referred to him in passing, always professionally. Said he was good with numbers and annoyingly charming. What I saw next didn't belong in a workplace. It didn't belong in any shared space. I sat there, frozen, watching my wife press herself against him, lips on his neck, his hands on her waist. The act itself was obscured by furniture, but the intention, what they were doing, was unmistakable. They were laughing. Smiling. Like it was normal. The video cut abruptly at the 2-minute mark. No commentary. No blurring. Just silence, then a flashing watermark from the site. I stared at the screen, the cursor hovering over the replay button. I didn't move. Didn't speak. My ears rang. My mind started grabbing for explanations, any possible way to undo what I'd seen. Then the reality settled. Not only had she been unfaithful, she'd done it in the place she claimed to be so devoted to. The same office that had kept her so busy, that had required late nights, travel, locked doors. And now it was public. The site had comments. Anonymous ones. Some condemning, others mocking. I refreshed the page. The views were climbing, hundreds every minute. Someone had leaked it, and it was spreading. I closed the laptop. I stood up. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't feel confused. I felt something raw, immediate, and blinding. Rage. This wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation. And I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't even wait. I drove straight home from the office, still in a daze, every red light a trigger I clenched my fists through. When I pulled into the driveway, Lena's car wasn't there. That was good. It gave me time. I unlocked the front door, went straight upstairs, and began pulling her things from the closet, shoes, dresses, those matching luggage sets she loved. Everything with a trace of her. I didn't fold. I threw. 3 suitcases, 2 garbage bags, and a handful of hangers later, her presence was gone from our bedroom. I dragged it all downstairs, out onto the porch, and left it there in a neat, visible pile. No note. No goodbye. Then I locked the front door. Changed the code on the keypad. Pulled the spare key from under the ceramic frog in the garden and dropped it into the garbage bin. The click of the lid shutting felt final. When she finally pulled into the driveway 2 hours later, she had no idea. She stepped out of the car, phone in hand, sunglasses on, and spotted her things. She looked confused. Then cautious. Then angry. She approached the door and tried to open it. It didn't budge. She knocked once. Then again, louder. I opened the blinds, met her eyes through the glass, and said loud enough for her to hear, "You're not coming in." She shouted something. I didn't catch it. I didn't care. "Check your email," I said, then shut the blinds. Inside, I'd already begun the next phase. I sent the video link, along with screenshots, timestamps, and a short, precise summary of events, to every relevant party, her HR department, the senior partners she'd always name-dropped, the firm's ethics officer, and the board of directors. Subject line, internal conduct violation, urgent. Then I sent it to her parents. And mine. No explanation. Just the link. Let the footage speak. I sent it to the school parent group she was part of. To the mom friends she brunches with. To the neighbors she used to jog with every Wednesday morning. No spam. No drama. Just clean, quiet exposure. The truth, released without commentary. The fallout was immediate. By evening, the video had made its way onto 2 more workplace blogs. A Reddit thread picked it up. I saw her company's PR team issue a one-line response on Twitter, "We are aware of the situation and are conducting an internal investigation." The text started rolling in. From her. From mutual friends. From coworkers. I ignored them all. I made dinner for the kids. We watched a movie. I tucked them in. I didn't cry, didn't rage out loud. But inside, I burned. Because this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about disrespect. And I wasn't going to let it pass quietly. Lena could keep her affair. But I would make sure it cost her everything else. By the next morning, the video had gone viral in more ways than one. It wasn't just office gossip anymore, it was a full-blown scandal. Someone on Twitter had paired it with a trending hashtag about workplace ethics. A few small-time media outlets picked it up, citing it as part of a broader conversation about abuse of company resources. That was the phrasing they used. It didn't matter. Her face was on it. Her name was now synonymous with it. I checked the company's website out of curiosity. Her profile, once top of the Our Leadership page, was gone. She called me 11 times that morning. I didn't answer. She left 5 voicemails. I didn't listen to a single one. Her last text said, "Please don't do this. We can talk. Not like this." I blocked her. The HR department at her firm sent me a formal email, "Thank you for your submission. The incident has been escalated for internal review. We do not condone inappropriate conduct by employees at any level." It was cold. Clinical. Exactly what I wanted. A few of her coworkers began reaching out, not to defend her, but to distance themselves. One messaged me anonymously to say she had made enemies internally, and that this wasn't her first close relationship with a colleague. I didn't respond. I just archived it, tucked it into the folder I'd started. I had no use for half-sympathies. The neighbors saw the video. I know because I overheard someone whispering about it at the grocery store. "It's her, right? The one with the hydrangeas in front of the porch." Another one replied, "I always thought she was too perfect. She stopped showing up to pick up the kids from school. I made arrangements with the school office so she wouldn't be allowed to collect them without my written consent. They asked no questions. The principal gave me a subtle nod, and that was that. My parents called, quiet but supportive. Her parents sent one message, "We don't understand. Please tell us what happened." I didn't reply. Friends chose sides, but most didn't need to. What she did wasn't speculation, it was fact, recorded and time-stamped. People who used to praise her poise and drive now pretended they never liked her in the first place. The woman who'd once been admired for balancing work and family had become a walking cautionary tale. She showed up at the house 2 nights later. I saw her from the upstairs window, pacing the driveway, talking to herself, clutching her phone. I didn't go down. I didn't open the door. I just turned off the porch light and watched her silhouette blur against the dark. She stayed for nearly 30 minutes. Then she left. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I had been. I was focused. She had built her career on image, influence, and reputation. So that's what I took from her. Not illegally. Not violently. Just, surgically. With documentation. With restraint. With truth. And the truth had already done more damage than any lie ever could. It's been 3 months since the video. The story burned hot, then fast. A few larger outlets picked it up. There was even a panel segment on one morning show, blurred faces, anonymous sources, and some expert discussing workplace boundaries. Lena's name was never mentioned, but if you knew, you knew. She resigned before they could fire her. Her company issued a bland, carefully worded statement about professional standards and organizational restructuring. It said nothing, really, but the message was clear. Her career, at least in that firm, was over. The coworker, Jonathan, was terminated the same day the story broke. No protection, no parachute. I heard through a connection that he'd been under review before that, and this just gave them the excuse. I never saw a public apology. I wasn't expecting one. Lena moved into a rental 2 towns over. I know because she listed the address in a court document. She filed for shared custody, but the court ruled in my favor, citing emotional disruption and reputational damage among the factors. She gets supervised visitation every other weekend. The kids still ask questions, but less frequently now. They've adapted faster than I expected. Ellie doesn't talk about her mom much. She's focused on school, friends, her stories. Miles is quieter. He doesn't fully understand what happened, but he knows something broke. I don't lie to them. I just don't give them the full version. Not yet. I've restructured my life. Work is steady. I've delegated more, started leaving the office at a decent hour. I make dinner most nights. I coach Miles's soccer team. I drive Ellie to her writing club. I talk more. Listen more. Not because I'm trying to replace what was lost, but because I know what it looks like when things are taken for granted. Our house feels different now. Not empty, clear. The noise is gone. The quiet isn't uncomfortable anymore. Lena tried calling once more, about a month after the custody hearing. She left a voicemail, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. She didn't beg. Didn't ask for anything. Just said she wished she'd been honest earlier. That she hoped someday we could talk again, for the kids. I haven't responded. I probably won't. Not out of hatred. Not anymore. But because I've learned something in all of this, that trust, once broken in a certain way, doesn't repair. It doesn't fade into forgiveness. It just becomes a scar. A marker. She made her choices. And I made mine. I protected what mattered. I responded without violence, without scandal of my own. Just truth. Just light. She lost the life we built together. The one I worked for, and the one she decided wasn't enough. And I kept the part that mattered most, our children, our home, my peace. The rest? Let her rebuild it from scratch. Alone.